Concrete is the world's most used building material. It is abundant, affordable, locally available, and can be used in innumerable ways. Our industry recognises that our world is facing two huge challenges: climate change and the loss of biodiversity. In 2020, we came together as leaders in the sector to commit to producing carbon-neutral concrete by 2050, in line with global climate targets, accelerating the CO2 reductions that we have already achieved. We also have a long and proud record of protecting and enhancing the natural world, and have recently committed to achieving net positive impact on the land where our members operate, such as quarries. Across its whole life cycle, concrete offers significant sustainability benefits over other building materials, thanks to its innate properties, such as its strength, durability, resilience to extreme weather and hazards such as fire, its cooling abilities, its recyclability, and its carbon uptake. We believe it is vital that building materials should be chosen in the context of the whole building to achieve optimum design, longevity, performance, and sustainability. The GCCA calls for fair assessment in construction material choices, avoiding preference for one material over another, and call for accuracy, equity, and full accounting of the real environmental and carbon footprint of all building materials. Taken together, concrete's remarkable properties make it a vital element in limiting the scope and combating the effects of climate change, enabling the development of sustainable and resilient buildings and communities for our world. Find out more about the sustainability benefits of concrete at gccassociation.org.
Biodiversity and ecosystems are vital for our planet, and we know that industrial activity can have an impact on our natural world. While concrete plays an essential role in the modern world, supporting infrastructure and crucial amenities, we know that through sourcing and extraction of raw materials from the earth, the cement and aggregate industry can also have an impact. We have long known that it is crucial that our operations are undertaken as sustainably as possible, mitigating environmental impact. Our industry has taken important steps to ensuring quarries are progressively rehabilitated during extraction, and upon completion of operations, ensuring habitats are restored and even enhanced throughout our activity. This includes measuring biodiversity values before and after to ensure we move towards the achievement of net positive impact. The social benefits of rehabilitated areas can also be important, and where possible, can provide community recreational areas. Biodiversity in the built environment can also be enhanced where nature is consciously integrated into building development, such as green walls and roofs and wildlife overpasses. We also know that mitigating climate change is the most vital step we can take to preserve our natural world. That's why the GCCA and its members have committed to producing carbon-neutral concrete by 2050 in line with global climate targets. GCCA members also have a detailed guideline to ensure that biodiversity is maintained and enhanced throughout their operation. We are proud of our record, but we continue to strive to preserve and enhance our natural world and are committed to building the sustainable world of tomorrow.
The UN Sustainable Development Goals are a group of 17 targets to address a range of development challenges, from clean water and sanitation to sustainable cities and communities, and of course, to climate action. With just 10 years to go to achieve these important goals, the cement and concrete sector can play an essential role. In 2020, GCCA members committed to drive down CO2 emissions and produce carbon-neutral concrete by 2050 in line with global climate targets. We will achieve this by eliminating energy-related emissions and reducing process emissions by harnessing new technologies as well as encouraging the reuse and recycling of concrete. Concrete also underpins the transition to clean energy sources such as wind turbines and dams. This drive to a low-carbon model will help life below water, while responsible and sustainable quarry management restores the land we use and promotes biodiversity. Concrete's durability, strength, and recyclability also mean it is vital for building sustainable cities and communities. As an industry, we promote and endorse responsible sourcing, consumption, and production. Concrete has long been a key material in enabling our communities to function, supporting the vital infrastructure our world needs. According to the United Nations Office for Project Services, UNOPS, infrastructure alone influences progress towards 72% of targets of all 17 SDGs. But did you know? Concrete also supports and protects our food and water supply, and because it is resilient, affordable, and globally available, it can make a positive impact in tackling poverty, providing schools and supporting communities to flourish. Construction's role in the pandemic recovery and supporting economic growth can help people find safe and decent work. This can contribute to improving global health and well-being standards, providing the basis on which we can make positive societal change. These goals are shared by the world. Our contribution can help, but we know is more effective when we work together and with others to build the sustainable world of tomorrow.
Concrete is strong, durable, sustainable, affordable, renewable, beautiful, and a resilient part of our world. It is the foundation of many human stories, past, present, and future. Now, as the world faces unprecedented challenges, concrete has a vital part to play in our recovery. But some things need to change. More than ever, our planet needs cleaner, greener infrastructure. And as an industry, we have the responsibility to enhance its environmental footprint and accelerate progress. As the world's most sustainable building product, concrete is ready to meet this challenge. Ready to build a safer and more sustainable world. And ready to commit by delivering carbon-neutral concrete for the world of tomorrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, our launch event is about to start. Please welcome your Roadmap launch host, Gavin Esler.
Welcome to Concrete Future Today. Many thanks for joining us for this very special event wherever you are around the world. This is a milestone moment for the cement and concrete industry and for the world. My name is Gavin Esler. I'm delighted to be your host to take you through this jam-packed hour ahead, where you will learn much more, hear from some exceptional contributions from industry leaders, built environment specialists, and some special guests supporting today's launch. Just a couple of quick things to note before I hand over to the GCCA President to formally welcome you. If you have any questions over the next hour, please use the question facility to type in your question. The GCCA team is on hand to answer your questions live, and any that they don't get to today, they'll be happy to pick up over the next few days. I'd also ask you to follow the GCCA on social media for the launch. Our main hashtag is, of course, #ConcreteFuture. So let's get going. To kick us off, it's my privilege to introduce Albert Manifold, Chief Executive of CRH and the President of the GCCA, to set us up for the hour ahead. Albert.
Thank you, Gavin. Ladies and gentlemen, members and affiliates of the GCCA, guests and friends from across our industry and the wider built environment, and also those of you joining from beyond our sector who are interested in the common goal of building the sustainable world of tomorrow, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the launch of the GCCA's Concrete Future Roadmap. On behalf of the board and all our colleagues across the GCCA, I would like to thank you for joining us on what is a very significant announcement for our industry. In 2020, members of the GCCA came together to agree a commitment to a collective ambition to drive down the emissions of our operations and to deliver society with net zero concrete by 2050. When we did so, we also promised to provide you with the detail on exactly how we propose to achieve that ambition. Achieving carbon neutrality, or a net zero future, and ensuring alignment across our industry on a sustainable way forward involves significant challenges. Despite this, I am extremely proud that after just over a year, we are now in a position to provide that detail. This has been the culmination of considerable work by the GCCA and by its member companies and their representatives spread right across the world to define and agree a way to achieve this ambition. Concrete is the most used human-made material on the planet. As a society, we produce and use 14 billion tons every year. It enables society to provide everything from roads to bridges, tunnels to homes, and hydropower installations to flood defences. And increasingly, it is also the foundation for renewable energy transition, safe infrastructure, and sustainable new homes all around the world. The integral nature of concrete within our society is clear, and our industry, as the current custodians of this important material, has a responsibility to ensure that we can continue to deliver this material as the world races to reduce carbon emissions in response to the growing urgency of climate change related challenges. Our industry was one of the first to take action on emissions and has already succeeded in lowering them by a fifth since 1990. However, as coordinated global action to decarbonise gathers momentum, we must also intensify our efforts. Today, we are announcing a roadmap which details how major cement and concrete producers from across the globe will cut 5 billion tonnes of carbon within this current decade. This is a plan that includes improving energy efficiency in our production process, developing and rolling out innovative new technologies, incorporating more circularity in the sourcing and use of fuels and materials, and enhanced efficiency in design and construction across the built environment. This is a very significant first milestone and a major step in eliminating the CO2 footprint of concrete. It marks a decisive moment in the race to net zero concrete by 2050 and is in line with the objectives of the Paris Agreement to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade. It also represents a major acceleration over the next 10 years, equaling the reductions our industry achieved over the last 30 years. It is a commitment to significant change across our industry and will see member companies innovate and invest for the future. Importantly, just as society needs concrete, concrete needs society. Our industry can lead the way, but we cannot succeed without the help of others. We will need to work collaboratively with other stakeholders to ensure the ambition and commitment that our industry has made to transition to net zero over the next 30 years is achievable. That is why we are calling for the support of policymakers, governments and public authorities to work with us, be it through public procurement reforms, carbon pricing policy and support for the development of carbon capture technologies. Putting the right policies and investment in place to support the global scale transition will be crucial. Public projects are responsible for almost 60% of all cement and concrete used globally. Governments and policymakers can play a leadership role in encouraging greater demand for low carbon products by ensuring the cement and concrete they purchase is greener. The roadmap we are unveiling today details these and other necessary actions, along with the milestones that are needed right across the built environment value chain for all of us to succeed. As the world recovers from the setbacks of the COVID-19 pandemic, it is increasingly evident that society now recognises the need for a sustainable and green future. Our industry roadmap will play an important role in positioning our product, concrete, as the sustainable building material of choice as we build towards that future. As President of the GCCA, I am proud that the sustainable zero carbon world of tomorrow will be built using greener concrete, and that our product can continue to play its unique role throughout society as we work together to address the challenge of climate change and build a concrete future. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you, Albert. Well, that is quite ambitious. I'm joined now by GCCA Chief Executive Thomas Guillot. Thomas, as I say, it is a real challenge, especially since this is known as a hard-to-transition or a hard-to-abate industry.
Yeah, thank you, Gavin. I mean, absolutely. Decarbonizing concrete will be an endeavor, that's for sure. However, we are custodian of concrete's future. So from our point of view, I mean, we will present the roadmap a little bit later, but concrete is essential to the world. And in that sense, it is essential that we also are part of the net zero world of tomorrow. So with this, what we present is actually a plan. It's a very detailed plan, concrete plan, some would say. And with this, we will come from the hard to abate to the possible to abate.
I think what really strikes me is not only is it hugely ambitious, as we've heard from Albert there, and there are stages along the way, but this is, I think, the first global industry, heavy industry, to have set out a fully decarbonised pathway in the years ahead.
Yes, indeed, Gavin, this is the case. In fact, that's, I think, one of the biggest single commitments from a heavy industry so far. And we englobe companies from all across the world, from Africa, from Americas, from India, from China. So it is not just a developing world story. It is a global story with many people involved. GCCA, as a matter of fact, represents 80% of the cement and concrete manufacturing world outside of China. And on top of that, we have some key Chinese manufacturers like China National Business Building Materials, sorry for that. It's a big commitment to achieve the net zero, and we have been actually acknowledged lately by UN, by the United Nations, as the first sector, GCCA, to become accelerator in the race to zero from United Nations.
Thomas, I think the thing I find quite extraordinary is that all your members, 80% of the industry outside China, quite a few inside China, are all agreed on this, while they are also competitors by day. That is an extraordinary achievement to get them to agree.
Yes, indeed, Gavin. And the launch of today, I think, underlines the determination of the sector to get there. In fact, GCCA is a CEO-led organization. That means that our members, our CEOs, are bringing their strategies, vision on first and foremost, leadership into the whole thing. I propose, let's hear them now.
Climate change is the greatest challenge our world faces.
As industry leaders, we know that taking decisive climate action today is essential to building a sustainable world for tomorrow.
With today's population and urbanization trends, our greatest challenge and our greatest opportunity is to build a net zero future that works for people and the planet.
Concrete has shaped our modern world. It will play a vital role in addressing the need for sustainable and prosperous communities
through key infrastructure and home, clean water, and renewable energy, and by providing a more resilient world as our climate changes.
In 2020, our industry came together globally to commit to a 2050 climate ambition and align with global climate targets.
That ambition was to drive down the CO2 footprint of our operations and products and aspire to deliver society with carbon neutral concrete by 2050.
Today, we are announcing our concrete future, the collective commitment and roadmap towards achieving a decarbonised industry and a net zero concrete for the world.
The GCCA 2050 Cement and Concrete Industry Roadmap sets out the levers and milestones that will be required to achieve this goal. It represents a decisive moment for our industry and the world, showing an achievable net zero road for the world's most used material after water.
It will require the industry to significantly accelerate the sustainability progress we have already achieved.
Over the last 30 years, we have collectively reduced carbon dioxide emissions by 20% per ton of cementitious material.
And we are now setting out our commitment to a similar reduction by 2030 in just a third of the time on our way to achieving net zero.
In this crucial next decade, we are investing in our teams, in new techniques and new technologies to achieve these reductions.
私たちのロードマップではサプライチェーン全体で化石エネルギーが排除され、さらに多くの再生可能エネルギーや廃棄物代替エネルギーが使用されるようになります。
New, lower carbon ingredients in cement and more efficient techniques will enable society to build more with less.
Innovations like carbon capture, utilization and storage technologies, which already has many live pilot projects underway, will move towards commercial scale deployment.
Our net zero commitment is a significant challenge and one we cannot achieve alone.
We need to work with all stakeholders in our value chain, as well as with governments and policymakers, to ensure the stage is set to make this possible.
Through our Concrete Future Roadmap, we will deliver a decarbonised industry, provide net zero concrete, and together build the sustainable world of tomorrow.
Well, that's from some of those inside the industry, but what about those from outside? We have three of them now. First, Lord Adair Turner from the Energy Transitions Commission and long-time leader on the climate challenge.
Everybody recognises that cement and concrete production are amongst the most difficult economic activities to decarbonise. But that has got to be a spur to ambitious thinking and hard work, not resignation. And the GCCA has begun that ambitious thinking, setting out in this report a pathway to cut industry emissions from 2.7 gigatons today to zero by 2050. As they describe, doing that will require better designed and constructed buildings. It will require multiple forms of efficiency improvement and the use of carbon capture and storage. And all of that will require new investments and supportive government policies. So there's still a lot of work to do to turn an overall pathway into a detailed implementation plan country by country. But this report is a huge step forward, and I commend the GCCA and its member companies on the leadership they are providing in this commitment to achieve net zero carbon cement and concrete production by mid-century.
Adair Turner there. Now, the United Nations Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, he can't be with us today, but he did send us this message. The Global Roadmap to Net Zero Concrete, signed by the 40 companies of the Global Cement and Concrete Association, sets out the pathway to reduce 25% of emissions associated with concrete by 2030 and achieve full decarbonisation by 2050. This roadmap is an important first step. I invite all cement companies to join this vital endeavour. The transition cost should not be borne only by the first movers. I call on all governments and relevant actors to align public and private finance and procurement to create strong markets for net zero aligned industrial production and develop national sectoral roadmaps towards zero emissions. Without credible action now, the UN Secretary General says, future generations will have no livable planet to build upon. The United Nations stands ready to support you. Let us together lay the foundations for a world of health and prosperity for all. In a moment, we'll get into some of the details, but first, here's this.
Hello to everyone. I am Bertrand Piccard from the Solar Impulse Foundation. When I see the situation in the world, I refuse to choose between degrowth that will lead to social chaos and the current production and consumption process that is leading to an environmental disaster. We need a third way. We need the qualitative growth, where we create jobs and generate profit by replacing what is polluting by what is protecting the environment. And it is possible. As a proof, the Solar Impulse Foundation has identified up to now 1,300 solutions, systems, processes, products, materials that are able to increase efficiency in the production, efficiency of resources, efficiency of energy. And when I see a company like Holcim, who is now going from a production mode of cement that is producing CO2 to a production mode that is capturing CO2, I think the Cement and Concrete Association has a huge role to play to show the commitment, the implication of the industry using new technologies, being more modern in order to show the way. And with the carbon neutrality in 2050, you are spot on. You are pioneers, and you will encourage a lot of people in other industries to do the same. So congratulations and good luck, because I'm sure you're going to succeed.
Well, let's put that to the experts who are with me now. I'm joined by Magali Anderson and Claude Larrea. Magali is Chief Sustainability and Innovation Officer at Holcim and one of the co-chairs of the GCCA working group which developed the roadmap. Claude is the GCCA Cement Director. So, how did you pull this roadmap together?
Wow. We built on our climate ambition statement, which we launched last year. We created no less than 14 task forces with more than 100 experts from our member companies, from our affiliates. The affiliates are the regional and the national cement and concrete associations. And they worked over 15 months to develop this roadmap. And really this has ensured that we had local input and that we had people aware of the regional challenges, but also the regional opportunities. And this is then pulling all this together. This has made this roadmap.
And I understand ECRA were also really important in helping to develop the roadmap. Let's hear from Dr. Martin Schneider.
The GCCA roadmap is an incredible milestone in the long tradition and long history of the cement and concrete sector. And we could already feel that the work on this roadmap has started even before its launch, because so many representatives of GCCA members, of GCCA affiliates have been working together to put all these elements together which finally make up this roadmap. And we as ECRA, we are very proud that we have been part of this exercise.
What are the key parts then of the roadmap story? I'll ask you both, but Claude.
Yeah. I think that the key part first is really to remind ourselves of the global challenges, the mega trend. We will need to build in the future one New York City every month. So the need for concrete is going to increase, and concrete is going to be essential to build critical infrastructure, to build houses, schools, hospitals, also to help the transition in other sectors like clean energy. Renewables will require concrete. So the need for concrete is going to grow. We are going to face an increased demand for this critical and essential material. But we have a challenge, is that the production of concrete is CO2 intensive, so we emit a lot of CO2 emissions. So the question is, how can we build this sustainable future while getting to net zero emission? And this is actually what this roadmap is all about, is how do we ensure that we meet this growing demand while achieving net zero emission by 2050? And that's really the roadmap story.
You know what was interesting, you know, as you mentioned, I was the co-chair of that work, of the work group working on that. What was amazing is that we actually didn't start from scratch. If you think about it, we're an industry that started very early. In 1919, where I think not that many people, except few people making some few documentary, were talking about sustainability. The cement sector and concrete sector was already looking at it and already reducing their emission. IEA, which is an international agency for energy, has actually, the first roadmap they produced was the cement roadmap to go to zero. So we have a strong history. In the last 30 years, since 1990, we have reduced by 20% already the emission as a sector, not a single company. That's the beauty about it. And in the next 10 years, by 2030, we are going to reduce another quarter of our current emission, 25%. That's actually 5 billion tons of CO2. May I repeat that? 5 billion tons of CO2. That's
huge.
I don't know if you can actually put your head
really,
around that number.
It's a lot.
Exactly, it's a lot. And then, but we know we can do it because we have those famous traditional levers that we've been working on for the last 30 years. In the meantime, we have to work on innovation. So we're not saying we sit down and wait for innovation to happen. We're saying we're working in what we know how to do. We know how to do it well, and we're going to accelerate the next 10 years. In parallel, we work on innovation. And innovation will allow us after 2030 to accelerate even further and to go all the way to zero, which is what we are committing today.
Let's have a look at some of those levers, because you've got a graphic over there. Obviously, the biggest box is the purple one. The orange boxes. Maybe you could talk about them first of all.
Yeah, so there are two orange boxes. And the first one is efficiency in clinker production. So clinker is the key ingredient. That's the one of which the production is CO2 intensive. And for clinker production, those are the levers that Magali mentioned, we know, but we can push them further. So it's energy efficiency in clinker production, it's fuel switch. This is an amazing lever that our industry has, which is to substitute fossil fuel like coal with waste, societal waste, also waste from other industries, byproduct from other industry that we use as fuel, replacing the fuel, but also replacing some of the raw material. We can also use decarbonated raw material. This is getting technical, but one of our key issues are our so-called process emissions. So we have the energy that we need at emitting CO2 like many other sectors, but we also have this process emissions that we need to abate. And there, one possible innovation lever is the use of decarbonated material. And then there is the famous hydrogen. So in our roadmap, we are forcing some use of hydrogen for clinker production. Maybe you want to do the other...
The big box, the purple
the
box.
other box, the orange.
Well, I would just say two seconds because you introduced the word clinker. So clinker is a bit of a technical word, but that's what comes out of the cement plant. It's something called clinker, and that's what needs CO2 to be made. And then you take that clinker and you make cement with it. So you can make cement with a lot of clinker, and you can make cement with not much clinker. So one big game is how to reduce what we call the clinker factor. And we use it, as Claude mentioned, using some byproduct from other industry. So that's great if you think about it. If you think of, for example, the steel industry with the slag, instead of landfilling, they give it to us and we make that waste into a beautiful product called cement. But we also look at mineral materials such as calcine clay, etc. So there is many avenues of existing alternative materials that allows us to reduce the clinker factor, and it's a very strong component of our roadmap.
The purple box, Claude.
Yeah, the purple box is CCUS, so that stands for carbon capture, use and storage, and this is where we really need the innovation to happen. It's taking place. We have a lot of projects blossoming all over the world. We have a map also in the roadmap that shows all those projects, and we have now 30 projects. It's hard to keep this map up to date, in fact, because members are announcing new projects all the time. And actually, I'm also sure from building this map that there are many more projects that haven't been publicly announced yet. So, and that's just people are waiting for the grants or the right time to announce the project. And really, this innovation is key. We have with GCCA 2 innovation platform under our Innovandi brand, and we hope that we will also support development of those technologies. But to make it happen technologically, we know it works, but we need to make it in an investable proposal. And maybe Magali, you want to elaborate on that one.
I think CCUS is a very interesting avenue because it actually exists in the 70s, but the challenge of the cement industry is to, first of all, make it for us, for our type of emission, make it scalable and make it economically viable. And this is where the next decade will be so crucial because we don't really need it, even though we have a commitment to have 10 industrial scales carbon capture, utilization and storage by the end of the decade to show we can do it and we are ready for next phase of acceleration. But what will be crucial on the innovation is make it scalable, have everybody involved, including on the value chain, the governments, etc., so that the infrastructure exists. This is where you start thinking of carbon pricing because carbon has a value. You know, today we think carbon as a waste. We think carbon is a horrible thing. Well, it's a way to look at it, but I'm a very positive person. You know, my glass is always half full. I see carbon as a resource, and that resource can be transformed in mineral materials, but it can also be transformed in synthetic fuels or synthetic plastics, helping other industry to decarbonize. So the pricing of the carbon, the infrastructure, the economic model will be absolutely crucial in the coming years.
For more on CCUS policy and financing, here is Juho Lipponen from the Clean Energy Ministerial and Sabina Schlorke from IFC, part of the World Bank Group.
Among many solutions, carbon capture, utilization and storage, or CCUS, is the single largest lever in the GCCA vision from now to 2050. And progress with CCUS deployment in the cement sector really must start now. Countries under the Clean Energy Ministerial CCUS initiative are very keen to collaborate with the cement sector to make progress towards the roadmap goals. And we look forward to working in partnership with GCCA to create the necessary policy and infrastructure for CCUS deployment.
IFC is committed to working with all cement companies to advance their decarbonization pathway in developing markets in a way that is technically feasible, socially acceptable, and financially sustainable. Overall, we remain convinced that the transition to net zero cement can only take place with a supportive regulatory framework, effective and sustained investments, and most importantly, a committed industry.
Now let's hear from the IEA, the International Energy Agency. Here's Timur Gul.
It is clear that a multifaceted approach is required to achieve the emission reductions necessary for the cement sector to play its part in the achievement of the world's climate goals. In the short term, the industry must push hard on market-ready technologies and strategies, including continued improvements in energy efficiency and reductions in the clinker-to-cement ratio. Material efficiency strategies pursued right through the cement and concrete value chains are another critical component of the portfolio for the near term. In the longer term, innovative technologies that are not available on the market yet today will be needed. These type of innovative technologies obviously include carbon capture, but also the use of electricity and hydrogen as a source of heat in kilns. The next 5 to 10 years are critical to demonstrate and bring these technologies into the market, as well as to build out the necessary supporting infrastructure for their deployment.
Well, we heard Timur there speaking about market-ready technologies. What are the easy bits, the bits that you can grab to make this roadmap work?
So I think my preferred one is a circular economy one. And think about it. You take cement. With cement, you make concrete. With concrete, you make a building, a bridge, the foot of a windmill, whatever. But there will be a moment where you will need to destroy that. And when you destroy that, you take the rubbles, we call them in our jargon construction and demolition waste, and you put it back straight, either in cement and concrete. And that we can do today. We have the technology. And I love it because it's completely circular. That means doing whatever we are going to do by using less resources, but also it's a question of valuing the waste. A bit like I was talking about valuing CO2 earlier, the waste should be used where it brings the most value. And when it brings the most value is when it replaces something that you need CO2 to make, such as cement and concrete. It's one thing. We also look at how do we design better? How do we optimize our product? And this is where I talked briefly about the value chain earlier. This is where the value chain is so important. Material should be looked at a component of performance of a building. If you think about it, the life cycle of a building is not just the construction, is how it's going to live over time. How old is it going to get before you need to replace it? How much energy you are going to need to heat it up? And this is where looking in the concept of what we call whole life cycle is so important. And this is where concrete is such a beautiful material.
I suppose the big question for the future for people outside the industry and inside the industry is how you're going to hold yourselves accountable and how others will hold you accountable to say, this is what you promised, have you actually done it?
Yeah, no, that's a key question. I think it's important to highlight that our industry and the GCCA member have a long history of CO2 monitoring and reporting. We are the only sector who has a global database of CO2 emissions, and members are committed to report already to the GCCA their CO2 emissions. We have now to extend this to concrete, so we are doing it at the level of cement, and our plan is to extend this to concrete. But then also the GCCA governance is such that our members, we are a CEO-led organization, we are seeing this over the day, but also our members are committed to our sustainability charter and also to our sustainability guidelines, under which they have to report to the GCCA. It's a membership criteria, in fact, this mandatory reporting requirement. So I think I'm trustful that we will have the data to monitor across the various levers that we are putting in place. And then obviously we are more than aware that we will have to report to the world and to stakeholders on the progress we are making.
Accountability and credibility means transparency within the organizations and also outside to people outside.
Yeah, that's absolutely key. I mean, today, many people coming to many things, but the fact that we have such a strong history, I mentioned 1990 earlier. I mean, we are measuring since 1990, so it's not, we didn't discover it yesterday and try to scramble something. It's something we have tested over the years, and we know it's the right way, we are measuring the right thing. And with the roadmap now, we have the pathway, and we will be having to deliver over this pathway, but it's great. I love it. I love having that pressure because that's what makes this roadmap so exciting.
Magali, Claude, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
So, how are we going to get this done? To explore this in more detail, here is Andrew Minson, Director at GCCA for Concrete and Sustainable Construction.
Thank you, Gavin. In many ways, this launch is only the beginning. Partnerships have been so important already, and they will be key to deliver the destination. In our industry, with users of our products, and with global stakeholders that are influencing policy. GCCA has been working closely with producer members, but also cement and concrete organisations around the world. This includes our colleagues in the USA, the PCA, with whom we have coordinated our launches of our respective roadmaps today. Here's their CEO, Mike Ireland, and then we'll hear from Korea, Europe, and Latin America.
I'm pleased to announce that PCA, together with the cement and concrete industry, is launching an ambitious yet achievable roadmap to carbon neutrality by 2050. Of course, these endeavors will go for naught if only the US and a few other countries embrace the changes necessary to achieve carbon neutrality. We must solve this global challenge as one world working in unison. I applaud the Global Cement and Concrete Association in crafting and implementing a worldwide ambition, goals, and measurements in their roadmap. Not only do we wish GCCA the best, but we are aligned in our objective and desire to work cooperatively in achieving this challenge to make the world carbon neutral by 2050 or sooner.
With today's launching ceremony, the cement industry around the world, including the Korea Cement Association, we will actively participate in the GCCA 2050 carbon neutral roadmap, and we all put more effort
into becoming a leading carbon neutral countries. Please stay strong and cheer up. Thank you.
We welcome GCCA's roadmap as a strong contribution to enhance the role of our sector to achieve the global sustainability goals. We have shared the path with GCCA, bringing Europe's point of view and the state of the art. We are keen on working together as we are aware that carbon neutrality is not a local issue, and we need to share the best experiences and knowledge across the world.
For FICEM, the climate action has been the priority and a fundamental topic of the agenda in the last decade. In the last 5 years, we delivered 10 roadmaps with 90% of the Latin American production, and the focus was mitigation and adaptation, taking in consideration that we are the second most vulnerable region. We are convinced that cement and concrete is the leading material to build the resilient and sustainable world. We have a great challenge to lead on a responsible way, thinking in the future, acting in the present. Thank you.
And we have received many more messages from our affiliates from across the globe. So do visit our website to see these. Another important partnership is with the construction sector. They harness the versatility of concrete and take advantage of its many properties: strength, durability, fire resistance, etc. And the demand for low-carbon cement and concrete products comes from the construction industry. Let's hear from some.
The construction sector has a major challenge ahead in tackling climate change and achieving the global decarbonization objectives while supporting the needs for development. Due to this major impact on infrastructure and building, the cement and concrete sectors are strategically positioned to respond to these challenges. As a company that is fully committed with climate action, Ferrovial positively welcomes the cement and concrete industry roadmap, which strengthens the industry's commitment to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050.
GCCA have recognised the scale of the challenge and the need for collaborative action across the construction industry if we're going to get to net zero by 2050. Arup support the approach taken in this pathway. It sets out what cement and concrete companies need to do to reduce global carbon intensity on the supply side, but it also recognises the role of designers such as Arup in reducing demand for cement and concrete through good design and creating demand for low-carbon cement through our specifications. At Arup, we're committed to joining hands with others who are willing to do what's necessary to secure a sustainable future, and this pathway provides a valuable guide for all of us.
Finally, we have teamed up with the World Economic Forum in a joint initiative, Concrete Action for Climate, to help widen our reach as we deliver on the roadmap. This initiative is part of the overarching Mission Possible partnership. Let's hear from them.
Proud of the Concrete Action for Climate partnership with the Global Cement and Concrete Association, where we are bringing together the industry and value chain partners who are needed to make net zero concrete by 2050 a reality, supercharging industrial decarbonisation in this decisive decade. This new commitment in the industry to work together to take the sector to net 2050 complements the work already undertaken towards a carbon neutral industry, demonstrating the industry's increasing climate ambition. It's not going to be easy.
All these partnerships support delivery of the roadmap to help address the climate challenge. The other major challenge our world faces is that of the natural world. Our members have a long record of being responsible custodians of the land and operations they manage, aiming for a net positive impact. One of our key partners is Business for Nature. Let's hear from them now.
It's fantastic to see the cement and concrete industry taking such leadership to tackle the climate and biodiversity crises. The reality is we need to halve emissions by 2030 and invest in protecting, restoring and sustainably using our natural resources. To make this happen, and that's what's exciting about your announcement, is that we need to work together in partnership across industries, across sectors and borders to scale and speed up the action that's needed to live within planetary boundaries.
So we've heard from a wide range of organisations. I'm now going to link us to hear directly from a number of the industry leaders themselves. We want to hear what they think about their role, the challenges ahead, and importantly, what we heard before from the UN Secretary General about what policymakers can do to help. So let me introduce the panel now and we'll get straight into it. Joining us from Mexico, we have GCCA Vice President and CEO of CEMEX, Fernando Gonzalez. From Asia, we have Nelson An-Ping Chang, Chairman of Taiwan Cement. Connecting from Germany, we have Dr. Dominik von Achten, Chairman of Management Board at Heidelberg Cement. And joining us from India, we have Kailash Jawar, Managing Director of Ultratech Cement. Now, can I ask each of you in turn, beginning with you, Fernando, this is a personal challenge to you all as CEOs. I just wondered what it means to you, Fernando, and also how you make it credible to the people you work with, to the stakeholders, to everybody outside.
Let me start by saying that even though we all have been acting on climate change for ages, I do believe that this time is really different. The momentum that has been created for additional evidence, the momentum created by additional stakeholders really willing and supporting a change in climate action is what is making so difference.
Dominik, the challenge also for you as a CEO, and we discussed this before, you have to make it credible to everybody you work with and people outside too.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. And from our perspective, it's very simple. Huh? We need to not just set targets, obviously they are also important, but we need to walk the talk and then we need to lead by example. You know, as Heidelberg Cement, we were the first company in the sector that worked with SBTi on targets for the industry. And we are clearly adamant about the fact that we have designed a roadmap that we are about to launch today for GCCA as a company to set clear short-term, mid-term, and long-term targets. But one thing is also clear, we can only work together as an industry to solve this massive challenge. And therefore, we very much welcome that all stakeholders are now coming together and that the GCCA is launching its 2050 roadmap.
Nelson, on the personal challenge for you, and also on that point, it is there's a degree of optimism because you have agreement with people that you might compete with in other spheres, but you're all in agreement about this, Nelson.
In addition to the targets we set, I think it's important for us to engage the communities because just the industry itself cannot solve the problem.
Kailash, what are the particular challenges in India and how do you overcome them?
Like all developing countries, has the twin challenges of eradicating poverty and improving the life standards of people at large, while also reducing the environmental burden that this economic development entails, because these countries cannot remain without economic development. Obviously, the cement and building materials industry has a key role to play in helping the country to improve its Human Development Index, Sustainable Development Goals. If I may give you the example, housing for all is a key priority of the Indian government, and our industry has a critical role in achieving this.
I see you nodding there, Fernando. And also, you know, the good thing is we're not absolutely starting from nowhere. I mean, people have been thinking about this for a long time. It's what's the big news is there's a degree of agreement. So I just wondered, in terms of CEMEX, what your one sustainability action that you've already taken that you think you're proud of, that you'd like people to know about?
If I have to pick one, I think is related to how we are evolving to properly serve our customers, the construction industry, with low carbon options. Let's think about it. I mean, at the end, we are serving an industry and our customers do want to participate and they want to evolve into a low carbon economy. And for us, the only way to do it is to properly serve them with a larger, more comprehensive portfolio of low carbon products. Let's properly serve our customers by having low carbon cementitious and ready-mix products available for them.
Dominic, Fernando, right at the start of that answer there, he put his finger on it, which is it's not doing one thing. It's doing a lot of things. You can't perhaps do everything, but is there something that you particularly, Dominic, would like to focus on and that you've already been focusing on that you think people should know more about?
Absolutely. There is not only one single answer to this, but we strongly believe the math, at least that we know at this point, that carbon capture, it was mentioned before, is probably the one and biggest lever to get to. And we are proud as HeidelbergCement that we've been able to pioneer these technologies. As you know, in our plant in Brevik in Norway, we will, by 2024, already be able to capture 400,000 tons per CO2 per year, 50% of the total emission of the plant. Now, it's clear that we will advance that technology and will also work on other large-scale breakthrough projects along the way in Europe and globally. And it's clear for us that eventually also the industry will want to and need to profit from this because we can't do it on our own. That's absolutely clear. But we want to be the pioneer and the innovator in the industry on that one.
Nelson, in terms of pioneering and innovation, I mean, what sort of things have you been doing already that you're proud of?
As Fernando said, we need to produce products that our customers want. At the same time, talk to our customers. It's important for them to design products that use our products that is actually carbon neutral. So it's not only by our part, but just the cement industry itself cannot solve the problem. It took me several years to convince the carbon reduction is not just the CSR or ESG type of actions, rather than it is important. And clearly that carbon reduction will cost money. And this communication also go to our shareholders, our investors, saying that, yes, we are going to invest in this area and they have to expect it. So communication is the most important here, as far as I'm concerned, in this area.
Kailash, what sustainability action that you've taken are you most proud of?
I'd like to talk about the circular economy as far as my company is concerned. The circular economy has multiple benefits, as you know, including reduction in carbon emissions as well as reducing waste to landfill. We are the largest waste metals recycler in India by the sheer volume of industrial and municipal waste that we consume in our manufacturing operations every year. If I may talk about the financial year FY21 alone, we have used more than 20 million tons of industrial waste as raw materials. This has resulted in annual CO2 reduction of almost 10 million tons.
I suppose the other thing that we're all concerned about is credibility, and we all hope that there will be innovations which we can capitalize on and make work, Fernando, but what is realistic? Because we're looking ahead very far in the future. If you look 40 years in the past, we'd never have iPhones and laptops and so on. So what are the credible things that we can hope for that will help you on this journey, Fernando?
Our industry in a green and circular economy has a great future, greater than its past. And let me explain why. Because we can achieve a net zero by 2050. And now, 2050 is very far away. And I think Dominic already made a reference. Yeah, we, company by company, we have additional targets for this year, for next year, for 25, and perhaps the most important ones are for 2030.
Dominic, that's very interesting. I mean, the one word that we'll all hear there is it is doable, and it is doable up to 2030 with existing technologies. And after that, who knows what innovations? I mean, I take it you're smiling, so I take it you agree with everything you've just heard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as an industry and certainly as a company, we are fighting for not kicking the can down the road. We're not paid for achieving 2050 targets. I guess that's true for all of us on the panel today. We are paid for achieving today's targets, tomorrow's targets, 25 target, as Fernando was saying, 2030 target. And that's why I'm so adamant about the fact, let's get the measures to a point where we basically can realize them as quickly as even possible. But clearly, we need also the framework in order to get that done. And that's where I'm also looking a little bit to the political support, to the societal support. It was mentioned before. We can't do it on our own. And, we need the right funding framework. We need the right permitting framework, because I'm an impatient guy, and what I don't like is, permitting and discussion processes of 2 years, 3 years before we get going. There we together need to be better in order to implement the things, try them out, and then move ahead. Otherwise, innovation and progress will not work fast enough to reach the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement.
Nelson, I've met a lot of CEOs and they're all impatient. I think that's one of the characteristics you all share. I take it you broadly agree with this, that on course for 2030, after 2030 to 2050, who knows exactly what the innovations may be, but there is a roadmap to take us there.
We need regulatory support. The technology is progressing, but the regulatory, actually, they are behind us, actually. We can do a lot more, but we need a lot more approvals. The process of approving, it's much slower than the process of R&D, actually, the testing now. And we're talking about a couple of things we're doing ourselves, including in the energy fields. And just get that environmental thing going through may take 2 or 3 years. I mean, 2025 is around the corner, and 2030 is not that far away. We have a clear action plans for 2025. We have probably most of the action plans placed in 2030. But go beyond that, we need regulatories to faster, work with us faster to meet the technology improvements. And that of course, again, is communication to the public and to the politicians.
So what do you need from governments, Kailash? And have you got any policy examples?
It requires collective actions of all stakeholders and most importantly of government and citizens. Environmental awareness of citizens is very important, and the government across countries will need to take efforts to promote awareness on responsible consumption and sustainable living.
I was very impressed with the statement from the United Nations Secretary General today, who said to this meeting that essentially the UN is behind you. But the question is whether governments will also be behind you, whether that regulatory framework can be agreed in the amicable way that we're discussing now, Fernando. And how important, therefore, is it that governments set some kind of level playing field and also perhaps help with the metrics and say this is how we're going to judge you all, Fernando?
In the green and circular economy future, our industry, I do believe our industry will really shine. We are an industry that can be nicely inserted into a circular economy. We can absorb multiples of waste and residues from other industries and from households. And we can incorporate those into our products without our products suffering and without any additional emissions. So we can contribute to society more whenever this circular economy allows us to recover waste from industries, waste from houses, residues from demolition, construction demolition, a number of activities that are currently not regulated as circular. So public policy is tremendously relevant. We all, and GCCA, should be working on facilitating these changes. We're not dependent on changes, but definitely if different economies do transit into this circular concept, it will make our life easier.
Indeed it will. And Dominic, you know, we're just weeks away from COP26. So here we have all the leaders of one of the biggest industries in the world offering the governments something which could be good news for them to trumpet. So I just wondered what you want in terms of public policy from those governments in return.
From our perspective, yes, we are an industry that emits 6 to 8% of the global carbon emission, but that also means, I'm a positive guy, that we hold the key as our industry, Fernando was alluding to it, to solve the problem. And to be part of the solution. And that's what we certainly at Heidelberg Cement are fighting for. But Nelson made the point earlier, it is absolutely impossible for us if we don't get the support from the governments to set the right frameworks. So from our perspective, time is of essence, and we need to work on the permitting standards, on the funding mechanisms, on the CO2 infrastructure, but also, Fernando was alluding to it, on products, new green products demand that also in many cases comes from government agencies, product standards. So there are a couple of points that we have very specifically laid out as the GCCA, and that we are adamant to help the governments understand and the politicians to understand also during COP26 why this is so important for us.
Nelson, just to bring this conversation towards its end and summing up then, you are going to do some things anyway. You've committed to it. You're committed to it as CEOs. Your companies are committed to it. The GCCA is committed to it. And that will happen. But governments can accelerate it and make it a lot better if they get their act together at COP26 and subsequently. Is that the big message from our discussion today?
I think all of us are commissioning new facilities that are actually using waste as a substitution raw materials as also fuels. So as we decarbonize our product, we are also solving the society problem.
Gentlemen, thank you all for a very interesting conversation. I hope governments are listening. We'll find out in November, I hope. Thank you. Thanks to our CEOs for a really great discussion. Now, we live in a world in which we sometimes ask, what does leadership look like? Well, I think we've seen quite a few examples of that over the past hour. The people we've heard from today will all expect to be measured in the commitments they've made and will be measuring themselves, and that makes me optimistic. I'll leave you now with some closing thoughts from the CEO of Holcim, Jan Jenisch, who is the new president-elect of the GCCA.
Thank you, Gavin. What a great day for our industry. Today, we have set out a positive and collective vision for how the cement and concrete industry will help build a net zero world. As Albert said at the beginning, we do this because it is our responsibility as leaders. Cement and concrete have built the world we know, and it will also build the world of tomorrow. Climate action is happening today at my company and across our colleagues' companies. While we are competitors, we also know the value of collaboration because no single company can achieve a net zero future alone. So we collaborate on ideas, on innovation, and now we come together to commit to a net zero future. Now that we have set our clear pathway, we will reach out to involve all players in the whole value chain, from designers, architects, builders to city planners. We need policymakers, governments, investors, researchers, innovators, and customers to play their part. The hard work starts now. On behalf of the GCCA and the cement and concrete industry, I look forward to working with all of you on this exciting journey. Together, we will achieve a net zero future and build the brighter world of tomorrow.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you to all our contributors and for all of you all over the world joining us today. Follow us on the website and on social media, and the event is online at the GCCA website. You'll know by now the hashtag. That's it for now. We have the roadmap. The real work begins. Goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us and thank you for your support. We hope you play your part in helping us to build the sustainable world of tomorrow.